Thank you. Next item will be item 7, C16 2023-0002, Michael Whellan for Mark Worsham, 901 West Ben White Boulevard.
Madam Chair, just so that you know, Madam Co-Chair, recused yourself from this one.
Yeah.
Just so it's
She's
on the record.
Yeah.
Good evening, Michael Whellan on behalf of St. David's Healthcare. Go to the next slide, please. I'm here before you tonight to lay out our request for a variance to accommodate an emergency room wayfinding sign at the South Austin Medical Center, also known as St. David's South. Ray Collins, chair of the South Menchaca Neighborhood Contact Team, is also here tonight in support of our request behind me. Next slide. St. David's has an existing wayfinding sign on the property, but as we will discuss, and as you will hear directly from Mr. Collins, the sign's visibility is obstructed by the surrounding tree, the tree line, causing issues for people who are looking for the emergency room in situations where seconds matter. Next slide. The code variance is needed due to the topographical hardship on the site. The hospital sits atop a 20-foot retaining wall positioned right along the frontage road of Highway 71. Next slide. The proposed renovated sign would measure 35 feet in height, which would be compliant with current code if the hospital were situated at the street frontage grade rather than atop the retaining wall. Next slide. Here's an aerial view of the hospital so you can see where the existing sign is in comparison to the new sign. The new sign would be 6 feet away, virtually in the same location for consistency. That's right there up against the frontage. Next slide. Here you can see the existing sign at the top of the retaining wall. For reference, as you can see, the sign blends in with the surrounding tree line and is somewhat lost visually. Note also that the grade change happens abruptly at the street frontage, leaving no room at grade for the signage. Next slide. This is illustrative comparison of the existing and proposed signs at scale. You can see that the proposed sign would have an area of 253 square feet, which is compliant with current code. As I mentioned, the height would be 35 feet, which is the allowed height for signs that are at street grade. The requested variance would allow signs to be 35 feet tall from the base of the sign, which would accommodate the abrupt topographical change that occurs at the frontage road. Next slide. Here's another illustration showing how the new sign would differ from the existing sign. Next slide. And here is a photo showing how the road curvature at the site combined with the tree line meaningfully obstructs the sign's visibility. Next slide. As you can see how the additional height and increased square footage would elevate the sign and make it more visible to emergency room patients and first responders coming 70+ miles per hour down the highway. Next slide. And this is the existing view of drivers coming down the frontage road. The sign is truly difficult to see and is almost fully obstructed by trees. Next slide. As we've discussed and as you can see, granting the requested variance would significantly improve the sign's visibility and raise it above the tree line. Next slide. This photo demonstrates that granting the variance would not have a negative impact on surrounding properties or businesses, as the hospital takes up such a long piece of frontage and there are no other signs or businesses in the immediate vicinity. This variance also would not give the hospital special privilege not enjoyed by others for two reasons. First, as you can see, the retaining wall only exists along the hospital's property line, meaning other nearby properties are at or are close to the street frontage grade and are not impacted by abrupt changes in topography. Second, the proposed sign would be 35 feet tall, which is in compliance with current code if it was at grade. A business situated at the street grade, for example, could build a sign of this height by right. Next slide. On the screen is a recap of our request, and I'm now going to pass it over to Ray Collins, chair of the South Menchaca Neighborhood Contact Team, who I believe is right behind me. That is okay, Chair?
State your name for the record, please.
My name is Ray Collins. I chair the South Menchaca Neighborhood Plan Contact Team. In your late backup, Mrs. Ramirez has provided you a letter from our secretary reporting a vote that we took in favor of this sign variance. And to that, I will add that sometime back, I was following an ambulance bearing my spouse, and the driver missed the turn onto James Casey that leads into St. David's emergency room. Thank you.
Is there any opposition? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And sorry, Michael, I'm starting this time because this is one of those rare occasions where A, I'm going to talk about my past, and B, the fact that I have zero experience in land development comes in really, really handy. That hospital sign has sucked since I was an EMT in 1998. Now, it's a lot easier to find your way to a hospital with GPS, and you get to know a hospital after a while. But a perfect example is me driving a patient to Brooks Army Medical Center for the first time in San Antonio and not being able to find the emergency room from the freeway. Again, easier now, but I'd also like to point out I've been in a place where I was so poor that I had to make a can of mixed vegetables from the food bank last for 3 days. And when you're in that level of poorness, when you're that destitute, internet on your phone, that's a privilege. So this is a sign, this is an important sign. When you're on the freeway and you're trying to figure out where you're going and people are really, really struggling and it's the most panicked you've ever been in your life because someone's hurt or sick or dying, this thing will help. This is one of the rare times you'll hear me say, no matter what, I will vote for this. Absolutely, ad blanc, just done. And I hope everybody else does the same. But you got my support. So, Board Member Von Whellan.
Well, being picked up off the highway 3 times off of motorcycles, yeah, I know what it's like when they miss it. Twice I got hit by deer, so my wife says it doesn't matter, you still went down, so. But I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
Okay. I will second that. Other questions, discussion? Okay.
Findings. The board must determine the existence of, sufficiency of, weight of evidence supporting the findings described below. In order to grant a request for the variance, the board must first make one or more of the findings described below under 1, 2, and 3, and the board must make the finding described in item 4. The variance is necessary because strict enforcement of the article prohibits any reasonable opportunity to provide adequate signs on the site, considering the unique features of the site, such as dimension, landscaping, or topography. Because of the topographical changes from a 20-foot retaining wall create a hardship for compliance with Section 2510-123B, and as it significantly reduces max sign height in comparison to signs aligned with the street frontage grade, this existing sign is also partially obstructed by dense tree cover. It's further impacted by the road curvatures. Cars approach at a very high rate of speed, exacerbating the impact of visual obstruction and lack of visibility. This variance is needed. I'm not going to read 2, but I will read 3. The granting of this variance will not substantially conflict with the stated purposes of the sign ordinance because Section 2510-1A4 seeks to protect the safety and efficiency of the city's transportation system by reducing confusion and distractions to pedestrians and motorists, improving the visibility of the emergency room wayfinding sign, reduces confusion and helps motorists navigate the emergency room more quickly and efficiently. And 4, granting the variance will not provide the applicant with a special privilege not enjoyed by others similarly situated or potentially similarly situated because other sites are not faced with the same significant and abrupt changes to topography. Madam Chair.
Okay. Again, this is a motion to approve made by Board Member Von Whellan, seconded by myself. I'm going to call the vote. Tommy Yates?
Yes.
Jessica Cohen, yes. Marcel Garza?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawthorne will be abstaining. Brian Poteet?
Yes.
Maggie Sharistani?
Yes.
Richard Smith?
Yes.
Janelle Van Zant?
Yes.
Michael Von Whellan?
Yes.
And Suzanne Valentine?
Yes.
Okay, congratulations, your variance has been granted. For new members, this is also part of our duty. We just don't do zoning cases, we also do sign review. Tons of fun. You're gonna learn more about signs than you ever wanted to know. Next case,